You're listening to Popcorn and Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Asking the hard-hitting questions you want answers to. From political leaders and political hopefuls from around the world.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Popcorn and Politics. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, along with my co-host, Derek J. Wilson, and our special guest today, Representative Matthew Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Derek J., how you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Just a lovely day in this cold parts of Georgia. How about yourself?
It's 55 degrees a day, Derek. It's not cold. It's 55 degrees a day. It's not cold. Jersey got 9 inches.
It was cold.
It was a cold weekend.
It was cold last night. It was 21.
Yeah,
it was 21 when I woke up. So that's cold for me.
So for those of you who don't know, I was born in Georgia, raised in Jersey, back in Georgia. My friends in Jersey said they got 9 inches last night. I was like, don't miss that. It's 55 degrees a day here. So don't miss the 9 inches. Don't miss it. Because I would have been in the house for the rest of the week. Like, can't get out because we snowed in. So that's how we used to play it off. Because seriously, Derek, because you from Houston, so y'all probably don't get this. So you go outside, you shovel out your driveway, and then the snow plows come and push all the snow back into your driveway. And then you shovel out again, and then the pliers come and they do it all over again. So it's like, okay, so I'm home. So shout out to all my people out in Jersey.
Shoveling I did.
You don't want to experience that.
Yeah. So the most shoveling I did was with a dog.
Your video, your audio and video is coming through choppy. So you might have to check.
Yeah, my internet is.
Okay. Because you're delayed right now. You're delayed. All right, we're going to get on with this show because we don't want to keep messing. We're all supposed to be. That sounds better. We're supposed to be relaxing on Sunday, but who relaxes on Sunday? Not I, not Derek, not Matthew, of course. He's in the office. I'm in the office too, so y'all the books. So we're going to get on with this show. So thank you again for joining us, Matthew. So, you have a big race ahead of you. One which Derek was almost your running mate, which was interesting because both of you guys' last name was Wilson. And I remember we went to do a TV spot in Macon, and it was something about, well, both your last name is Wilson and his is too. And it was like, yeah, so that was kind of confusing. I think the only thing they said was different is yours started with an M and his started with a D. So I was like, okay. Right. But anyway, I'm so glad that you're here today. I know you guys are busy right now with everything that's going on, being in session and everything. So we want to talk to you about, one, where you are right now as a state rep and what you're focusing on. And then we'll get into your run for insurance commissioner for the state of Georgia and why have you decided to do that. So give us a little background about where you are right now as a state rep and why you decided to leave that position and fight for this other one over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm serving my second term in the state house. I was first elected in 2018 and then reelected in 2020. And I represent a district that covers parts of North DeKalb and Fulton counties. It's mostly the city of Brookhaven and Sandy Springs, but I've also got pieces of Atlanta and Dunwoody and Chamblee. It's been a crazy 2 terms so far in the legislature because of all the issues that have come up. I mean, as Georgia has trended more and more blue, and then we flipped the state for the presidential race and then won the 2 Senate seats, as we've sort of moved from Republican control to moving towards more Democratic control, we've seen just a bunch of horrible social issues move through the legislature. And I've been there the last 3 years fighting these things. But I'm very proud to serve on the judiciary, insurance, education, and agriculture and consumer affairs committees. And so see a lot of those issues that move through those committees. I'll tell you what got me first into politics. I when I ran it in that 2018 race, that was my first time running for anything. I had worked on a campaign before. Back in 2010, I had worked on Roy Barnes' governor's race while I was applying to law school. And so I knew a little bit about what I was getting myself into, but not, you really don't know what you're doing until you just are thrown in the fire with political campaigns, especially as the candidate. But what motivated me to run for that race was right after the 2016 election, when President Trump was elected, or when he was elected president. And just like everybody else, I spent 2 or 3 days on the couch, just really kind of depressed about what happened, what did we do wrong? I texted everybody I knew to vote and everything. And as I was reflecting about that, one of the things I saw was that the state House district that I live in had gone from Democratic control to Republican control. Mm-hmm. And the Republican had only won by about 280 votes. Wow. And it just killed me because I knew I wasn't involved in that race at all. And even though I knew the Democrat who was running for re-election, and I think I may have made a small donation to his campaign. But other than that, I didn't do anything to help him. I didn't knock on any doors. I didn't tell people to vote for him. And I just really thought, wow, if we're going to take this, the White House back in 4 years, we've really got to start local, right? And so I just started getting more involved in our House district, and when 2 years rolled around, or a year rolled around, and started figuring out who was going to run on the Democratic side for that seat, realized there was nobody stepping forward to run. And so I was fortunate to be at a place in life where I could sort of make that sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice for sure. And said, if I truly believe in this, then I've got to put myself forward. So threw myself into that race. We got a lot of support. It was a very, it was the number one seat to flip in the 2018 cycle. So it got a bunch of coverage. And actually, I wound up receiving President Obama's endorsement in that race, which is kind of like came out of nowhere. I just saw it on Twitter one day and said, I don't even know how I got on his radar, but that was an exciting cycle. And just feel very fortunate and privileged to be able to represent my district down at the Gold Dome these past 3 years.
So now I know that there's a lot that goes on. Representative McLeod was here last Sunday, and she was telling us, because someone was kind of like, what have you gotten passed, in the House? And she was saying, listen, it's 180 seats here, and we only occupy 77 of those. And so it's pretty rough to get things passed while you're a state rep as a minority. While you've been doing your term, have you been able to get any legislation passed that you put on the table so far on the floor?
Yeah, I'm actually really proud of my record. I checked this stat the other day, and in the 3 years that I've served so far, and I'm serving my fourth year now, so hopefully we'll add to the tally. But so far, the first 3 years, I've had 20 bills passed and signed by the governor into law, which for a member of the minority party, only in his second term is kind of a rare feat. But a lot of that, to my colleague Don McLeod's point, they're not letting us pass bills like expanding Medicaid, or giving more funding to our K-12 public school teachers. We can't touch issues like that. But what we can do is focus on our local legislation and the cities and counties that we represent. And so most of those 20 bills that I've passed into law have been local bills that affect Brookhaven or Chamblee that I represent, or DeKalb County. The one I'll tell you, the one I'm most proud of is one that passed last year to make some structural changes to the DeKalb County State Court. The state court has been around for a long time, but we were kind of in this position where there was this hierarchy that had been created between half of the court. If you looked at it on paper, it was viewed as there's the jury court, or the jury division of the state court, and the traffic division of the state court. And because of that line that was drawn between the two of them. Now keep in mind, all of these judges all have the same title, state court judge. They're all elected by the people of DeKalb County, and they all have the same job. But because this hierarchy was created internally over so many years, the traffic court judges were all paid less, weren't allowed to have as much staff or say in the internal governance of the state court, and just really were treated kind of like second-class citizens. And as if that wasn't worse, every member of the traffic division was African American, and every member of the jury division was not African American.
Wow.
We're talking about DeKalb County. Yeah. That has one of the largest, if not the largest, African American population in the state. Wow. And this was allowed to persist up until this year. And so I worked with members of the court. I worked with our local DeKalb delegation to say, okay, look, you all have the exact same job title and are put here the exact same way because you got elected by DeKalb County. And so you need to be paid the same. You need to have the same access to staff members and funding and that sort of thing, because at least from the standpoint of the county, you're sent here to do the same job. And so enough of this hierarchy stuff. And so it was difficult to get that done because we did have opposition. Not every member of the court wanted that to happen, as you might imagine. So we did have a tough fight on our hands, and we all represent some of those judges. But we were able to get it done, and it was signed into law, and it took effect just a few weeks ago. So I'm very proud to see those changes put in place.
It baffles me because you would think that legislation that you want to put out there that's going to help people have a better life would be something that everybody would want to pass. But it seems like it gets so much opposition from the other party. And so Medicaid, that's something huge. I mean, K-12, that's kindergarten, pre-K, that's something huge. What's the reason that they give you guys for fighting you when you put those bills on the floor? What's the reason for that? Is it budget? What's the reason? Because I can't imagine not helping people who want to have a better life.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of it is because of who gets credit for it. I think that's probably 90% of it is because they don't want us to get credit for it. I'm really excited about this Mental Health Parity Act that is moving through the House right now. That's a bipartisan bill. It's got the speaker has thrown all of his support behind it. And it seems like it's going to get done this year. But I co-sponsored that legislation 2 years ago, the exact same bill. So I'm so glad that now, the Republicans have taken this bill and made it theirs, and they're going to pass it and get credit for it. Good, because it's going to help people. And I'm going to vote. I'll vote for it, and I hope everybody in the chamber does. But we've had that bill pending in the state house for since 2 years ago. One of my colleagues, Shelly Hutchinson from Gwinnett County, and I introduced that bill. So a lot of what we do, it seems like it is that where, and that's kind of a humbling experience. I'm sure maybe Donna mentioned this, but especially working in the minority, a lot of working in the minority party as a legislator is willing to give up credit for your hard work, because because you just want the policy in place. And so, we're fighters for good policy. And so we'll push a bill through whether we get credit for it or not.
That's interesting. Wow.
And so I would like to ask a question on that one. I've, been studying government for a while. Why every time a Democrat put a bill, we can't seem to get bipartisan support? But I know Democrats support good bills, but why it seems like the Democrat Party is always the ones supporting Republican bills in order to make it a bipartisan effort? Like, why isn't it both ways? Why can't we get the other side to support something?
Oh yeah. It's all about
your thought on that.
Yeah, well, I think it does go back to who gets credit for it. At least who gets perceived to get credit for it. There's a lot of on any bill that we have. When someone says, I co-signed that bill or I co-sponsored that bill, we literally sign our names on the back of that bill. And there's 6 spots for signatures, and there's you can get more than 6 people to sign on to that bill, and especially if it's a very popular bill, like when the hate crimes legislation moved through. I mean, I think it had over 100 co-sponsors because everybody wanted to put their name to that piece of legislation. But only the top 6, only the first 6 names get published on the website that shows that where we show the bill and shows who the sponsors are. And so there is a lot of internal jockeying for who, if you can get in the top 6, and if, I don't want to be number 6, I want to be number 2, or I want to be number 1, and and it's kind of humorous, we can laugh about it, but it is political reality in the legislature. And so these are just kind of things that you get there and you learn that you have to work around if you want to get things done. And and if it's important enough, put me dead, don't put me on the website. I don't care. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, right. I signed my name on there, even if you can't look it up and see it on the website. So.
Wow, that's interesting. So all this time we thought it was about other stuff, and it's about ego. How about that? Okay.
Oh yeah, and the other thing too, I'll say, Derek, to your question, is I do think that our entire legislature, both the House and the Senate, we are all up for re-election every 2 years, and so if you think about that, you take two calendar years, 365 days times 2. Well, we're in session for about 3 months every year. So take out 6 months of that 2 years because we're in session. So we can't campaign during that time. And then, you got the holidays and things like that. You take that time out. What you realize very quickly is we actually have very limited amount of time in those 2 years to actually campaign for re-election. And so what happens is we're constantly campaigning for re-election. From the moment you get elected and sworn in, the re-election starts, the campaign starts, and it's all about what can I get passed this year so that I can run on it in November. And so that's a big part too, I think, Derek, is I want to make sure that Derek doesn't get credit for this bill because I want to be able to run on this bill for my campaign, and we've only got a year to do it, right?
Right.
It's something I do think that we should at some point in Georgia have a conversation about maybe extending those terms a little bit longer, so that we're not constantly running for re-election. But
right, I agree. I said the same thing for the U.S. House of Representatives, because we know the U.S. Senate is years, but yet the U.S. House is every 2 years. That makes no sense to me. But so being in the minority party calls you to be a fighter, and so with that, also your profession cause you to be a fighter. And so we brought you here for two reasons. One, because you are a state rep, but we also know that you're running for office. So could you just let our listeners know what you're running for and how does that fighting mentality applies to this position that you're running for?
Absolutely. So I am running for Georgia Insurance Commissioner. It's a statewide position. I launched my campaign not quite a year ago. It was the end of April last year, 2021, when we finished session. I launched my campaign and have been running since then. And the reason why is because I want to be a fighter for Georgia consumers. And I believe that my experience, my elected experience and service in the legislature, as well as just my personal life experience and my experience as a trial lawyer, all give me the skill set to really be effective in that commissioner's seat. And I know Derek knows this very well, and by way of Derek, Audrey, I'm sure you know this very well. But for your viewers, the insurance commissioner's race, this is not a sexy job. Okay, this is not. This is not you will not turn on to MSNBC tonight or CNN and hear them talking about an insurance commissioner's race anywhere in this country, because this is just not. These are not the headline grabbing races, but this race is so critical. I mean, the insurance commissioner is the most powerful statewide elected official in Georgia, other than the governor. If you just look at the power, that seat has, that whoever holds that seat has, and you can look at it another way too. This office is notorious in Georgia for corruption. Our most recently elected commissioner just reported to federal prison about a month ago, right? And is serving time in federal prison. And the commissioner before him was infamous for his corruption, almost bankrupted the department. The commissioner before him, John Oxendine, is still making headlines today, and he's been out of office for like 20 years. Yeah. About fighting his corruption charges from when he was commissioner. And it's because of the power that the person who holds this seat is given in our state government to control. You think about this, and Derek, coming from the insurance industry, I know he knows this very well, but every private insurance company that sells their product in Georgia, whether it's auto insurance or health insurance or business insurance, life insurance, they have to first get a license from the insurance commissioner to be able to sell to people in Georgia. And so, as you might imagine, those companies are making billions and billions of dollars a year, and depend on that license every year. And that one person gets to decide if they get a license or not, and then has to regulate them while the license, before the license renewal. And so there is a lot of opportunity there. If you look at the rulemaking authority that the commissioner's office has, to be able to hold those insurance companies accountable. But there's also a lot of opportunity there for corruption. And unfortunately, the last 25 years of Republican commissioner, it's just been like corruption headline after corruption headline after corruption headline. And so the reason why I'm running is because I want to use the experience that I've had the last 3 years in the legislature, and a career, nearly a decade long, practicing personal injury law, fighting for consumers, fighting for victims who've been harmed through one way or another, and put that to work for Georgia consumers and make sure that we're not only the number one state to do business, but the number one state to live and raise a family.
Yeah. It's so funny, as you were talking about all the corruption, the first thing, I have no idea why this popped in my head, but I felt like I was thinking, I started to think about Superman and kryptonite, right? And I'm thinking, okay, Matthew, you just named 3 people who came, probably said, you know what, I'm gonna get in there, I'm gonna do the best I can, and then they got beat down by the temptation of kryptonite because it was just there. And I almost feel like you ever been in a situation where you know that you shouldn't talk to that person, but they keep approaching you so hard and so strong to just cave. How you gonna fight that? Because it's coming for you. You know it's coming because it came from your predecessors. How you gonna fight that temptation? Because it's coming for you.
You're right. And you know, here's the way I look at that, Audrey, is every single one of them came from the insurance industry before they got elected commissioner. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I do think, or that it's inherently a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you can't do the job, but I do think that, you know, it makes it really difficult when we, the you know, Georgia citizens who put you in that office are expecting you to regulate and hold accountable your colleagues and friends who you've spent a career working with and making money for, right? These big companies. It does, I think, put that person in an awkward position. I don't come with that baggage, if you will. I literally sue insurance companies for a living. And if you forgive me for putting it so bluntly, but I do think that there is a clear contrast there because, you know, I'm not working for the insurance companies. I never have, you know, made them money. I take them to court when they refuse to hold up their end of the policy and pay out on claims that are made against, you know, legitimate claims that are made against the policy. And that's how I'll approach this job as commissioner too, is look, we've got to have insurance companies in Georgia selling their products. We have to have an insurance market. Georgia cannot thrive as a state for our people or our businesses without insurance. It is a necessary component to our future success. But that doesn't mean that insurance companies should get a blank check to do whatever they want. There has to be, just like everything else, there has to be moderation, right? And we do that in state government through regulation.
Oh, okay. So, Audrey, yeah, Matt, I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson.
Cousin Wilson.
Cousin Wilson. So for people who didn't even know what the insurance commissioner was until they started hearing about it in the news last year with, you know, the previous elected commissioner. But also it was in the headlines as well due to their, I guess, investigative or inspection role. As we all are aware, unfortunately, a student out there in Atlanta passed away in an elevator accident. Could you explain to the viewers what role does the insurance commissioner office play in said situation, as in, you know, elevators or that situation in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought this up, Derek. It is, so the official job title is Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner. So it has multiple aspects to it. There's the licensure and regulation of the private insurance market in Georgia. That's a big piece, and that's the piece that most people associate with the job, obviously. But the insurance commissioner is also the safety fire commissioner. And yes, for some reason, when lawmakers put this in the Constitution and statute decades and decades ago, they said safety fire, not fire safety. So I don't know why they put it around like that, but it's a phrase from bygone time, I guess. But as part of that job, the insurance commissioner appoints the state fire marshal that oversees a number of important inspections all over the state. Every private elevator, or every elevator, I should say, is inspected by the insurance commissioner, by the insurance commissioner's office. All amusement park rides are also have to be inspected by the insurance commissioner. And anyone who's ridden in an elevator in Georgia, you might remember, especially if it's a slow one, or you're in Midtown Atlanta going up 50 flights and you're in there for a minute or two and your eyes are just kind of looking around trying to find something to look at. You might have noticed that business card framed on the wall in the corner. That's the inspection certificate issued by the insurance commissioner. If you look close enough, it has the insurance commissioner's office on it. And Derek, you raised this tragedy that happened several months ago. Jamarcus McFarland, this 18-year-old football player who was living in a dorm in Midtown Atlanta or downtown Atlanta, and was on this elevator that was falling and kind of had fallen between two stories, and he was trying to get off the elevator. They were all trying to jump off, and several people jumped off before him, and very tragically he was crushed and killed in front of his friends. And that was a horrible tragedy, but Derek pointed out that as part of the investigation, the students said, we've been complaining about this elevator for years. And they sent pictures of, cell phone pictures of the inspection certificate that has the expiration date on there and shows the elevator hadn't been inspected in 2 years. And, at the time of the last inspection, the law was it has to be inspected every 6 months. But 2 years ago, the current commissioner came to the legislature and asked us to change that law to a full year, and we did. And so either way, the elevator was beyond it was a year overdue for inspection. And when the media asked the insurance commissioner, okay, why was this allowed to not be inspected for a full year past the deadline? The response was, well, it's the property owner's responsibility to call our office and schedule an appointment. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. Okay, sure. Maybe initially it is, right? Maybe initially it is the job. Just like initially it's our job to go schedule an appointment to get our driver's license renewed, right? Sure. Right. But at some point when we don't do that, it becomes the state's responsibility to step in and say, this elevator, we cannot vouch for this elevator's safety anymore. And so we're going to come inspect it tomorrow and make sure it's safe, or we're going to shut it down until we can inspect it. And unfortunately, that just is not how the current commissioner has been running the inspections program. They did issue a fine, I think of $5,000, but that just pales when you think about what is the value of the life of an 18-year-old young man who is still in school. And certainly more than $5,000. It's just tragic. So one of the bills that I've already introduced this session is a bill that would change that law and say, okay, after your once your inspection certificate expires, you get 60 days to reschedule your appointment and have the inspection come in. And if you don't get an inspection within 60 days, if you don't call and schedule it within 60 days, then you're automatically issued a $2,500 fine by the state, and the insurance commissioner is required to schedule you an appointment within a short period of time. And if they show up and you don't allow them to inspect the elevator, then you get an additional fine of $5,000. And that fine is recurring until you allow the insurance commissioner to inspect the elevator. It's just about taking this job seriously and understanding that literally it's people's lives that are at risk when this job is not done effectively.
Yes.
And then to add, Go ahead.
Then to add insult to injury with that particular location, not only was the elevator not inspected, but then, with any situation, once you open up the can of worms, once the insurance commissioner office actually did the rest of the inspection of the building, it was more violations found. The brawler was out of date or not in compliance. And so my question is, so currently we know as a fact that the current office is not very proactive when it comes down to that. What will Matthew Wilson's office, or how would it look compared to the current office when it comes down to being proactive? The bill obviously helps, the one that you already put forward, but let's say that bill doesn't go through. What can the commissioner do without maybe the law? What can they do on their own to be proactive and making sure that these doesn't go by the wayside?
Right. Well, I think the first thing that I'm going to do as insurance commissioner is pull the team together and say, okay, for everything that we inspect, elevators, amusement park rides, boilers, you name it. Let's put together a list right now that shows, who we've inspected in the past, who currently has a license, an inspection certificate, when that last inspection was performed, and when that certificate expires. And let's, it is not hard to use Microsoft Excel. You can sort by expiration date and say, all right, let's prioritize these elevators that have missed their inspection renewal. Let's focus here. And unfortunately, we had some testimony from the commissioner's office in front of the House Insurance Committee already this year, and then we did last year as well. And during the special session in November, we did. And so this was after this accident. And so we were able to kind of get into this a little bit with Commissioner King. And what we very quickly learned was their office has not been tracking when they give out these certificates. They don't know. So they've literally been depending on people on the ground in the elevator to call the office and say, this certificate is out of date. They've been depending on landlords and business owners to just call on their own, but they haven't been doing any sort of proactive check on that. So that's the first thing that we'll do January 2023 is make sure we have a system in place where we can track all of those. And at the moment, as we see that they're coming up on expiration or after they've already been expired, those are the ones we're going to be prioritizing to make sure that fines are levied if they have to be, but that people understand that safety has to be our number one priority.
All right. And what's sad about that is they already have a system like that in place. As you mentioned earlier, I am a licensed insurance adjuster. So I get a notification, 45 days before my license expire. I get a notification 15 days before my license expire. So they can't say they don't know how to do it because there's already a system in place for the other aspect of the office. But I find it ironic because my job doesn't put people's lives in danger, whereas the side of the office that is very life dependent, people can die. I mean, you'll think they have better systems in place for checks and balances and holding not only holding the office accountable, but holding the landlords and the property owners accountable as well. But I can go on my soapbox on that all day long, Audrey.
So I want to jump to the future a little bit, Matthew, because so Derek and I both wear many hats. This is just one of them. Full-time, he's a business owner. Full-time, I'm a business owner. Part-time, we run the Greater East Side Chamber of Commerce. And I'm a tech head on the side of all of that. So I love technology. And so as we move forward, and you may not be able to answer this because I'm about to go way to the future, but I'm going to go there because I want to see where you are. And if you're not there, maybe it's something to think about. We're moving into this whole metaverse, right? And with that come a whole bunch of new challenges. And that's where a lot of the insurance issuers and companies, they're going to have to make some adjustments as we move into the metaverse. And for those of you who don't know what that means that we're going into a virtual world where people are doing businesses, they're buying virtual land, which means there got to be contracts and insurance. It sounds crazy, but it's happening right before our eyes, and people are not paying that attention. And so that is gonna cause some issues when it comes to commercial insurance. Now, I don't know, have you thought about that so far out? But my thinking is, because I am a member of the chamber, my goal is to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of everything at our chamber. And so I live in this space. Talking about it, I talk to people about this space that helps small businesses get in this space. I personally feel like I wouldn't want Georgia to be caught with his pants down in the metaverse. I feel like we should be right now paying attention. Because when you start hearing big dogs like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Mark Cuban, they're all talking about it. Walmart, Nike, everybody is talking about this virtual world that we're going to be living in. And it's going to change the way we do a lot of things, especially when it comes to insurance and privacy. Have you thought about that? If you have, is there a plan for the future? Because I know it sounds like it's way far out, but 10 years will be here before we could blink an eye. And if you have, what's that plan? If you haven't, I understand, because I'm a geek, so I'm a little bit ahead out there. So that's kind of my question, because I know cybersecurity and all these things are going to come into play, because there's a lot of information that's going to be shared inside the metaverse. And a lot of people don't know, they're not thinking about it, but it's happening. And when you hear big dogs talking about it, it's happening right now. We're just not paying. Well, a lot of people aren't. I pay attention.
Yeah. It's a fascinating question. And I mean, of course you're right. We are moving to the metaverse. And so, it's only a matter of time before we're talking about, insurance, the insurance metaverse industry. I think that, the thing that we have seen about online culture or online business in particular is because in a lot of ways it's internet based. Our legal structure, our legal system, the way our laws are kind of set up and based on, really, really old notions of jurisdiction being physical land based, right? If you come into these city limits, we have jurisdiction over you, right? Or if you're in our state, we have jurisdiction over you. Well, the internet is something completely different, right? And our laws are still like trying to grapple with how they work in the internet, in the cloud. Who has jurisdiction in the cloud? Because you're everywhere and nowhere all at the same time, right? So it's interesting, as a lawyer, I've been following this, figuring out how do you apply our existing set of laws to transactions and things that happen in the cloud, when you can't necessarily say they happened in Georgia, and so Georgia law applies. And our legal system is grappling with this right now, trying to figure this out. But these are the questions I think that every industry, to your point, is going to be asking. And I do believe that money is like water in a lot of ways, that it will find a crevice. If there is a way to make money, it will find that crevice, and an industry will pop up, right? And so I think that what we can do right now is, in Georgia, is make sure that we've got the right commissioner in place who can deal with these things, who's going to be looking out for consumers and making sure that consumers are protected, and that they know what the risks are in whatever transaction that they deal with. And I think that 25 years of recent history will show it's not the Republican Party that you can trust on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to stay on the cutting edge, because right now it's sexy, right? It's sexy to be in it. Everybody's like, I want to do an NFT, I want to do this. and people can lose their shirts in this space and lose their life savings and fall for all kinds of crazy things that's going to come out there. So I think that's really important. And I know it's going to be more about educating our consumers. Like, listen, don't get in here if you don't know what you're doing. And if you do, need to get the proper insurance, don't be faked out by these companies that's promising to protect your interests if you don't know anything about them. So I think that's going to be really important to educate our consumers about that. As we build a chamber up and bring all this technology out to the greater East Side, I want to make sure that I'm telling them the right things too. So I'll be still doing my work, and whatever information I can pass on to you to help me make sure that we protect our members, I'll definitely do that.
Please do.
And also, Matthew, could you let everyone know how to get in contact with you? Where to find you? You have any upcoming events coming along? Just this is your opportunity to say all you need to say about you running for the insurance commissioner office.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for that, Derek. So you can find me in several different ways. I'm on social. My campaign is on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's Matthew Forga. And my campaign website, MatthewForGeorgia.com, all spelled out, is where you can find all things campaign related. You can learn more about me and what I want to do as the next insurance commissioner, as your next insurance commissioner. You can also see all the support that we've already earned. Dozens and dozens of state and local elected officials across the state have already signed up and backed our campaign. And as we have events coming up, we've been doing, obviously, during the pandemic, we're still doing a lot of virtual stuff like this. And so as these things are put on the calendar, we're pushing them out through social. And so you can find all of that on our social channels. And then, of course, you can also contact me through our legislative website, and all my contact information is there too. So you should be able to find me.
Okay. And what was that legislative website, if you know?
It is not as easy to remember as MatthewForGeorgia.com. I think it's house.ga.gov. And if you go there, then you can actually search all the legislators. If you pull up my page, it's got all my contact information at the Capitol, and then also here at this office, my district office, closer to where I live here in Brookhaven.
Well, we want to thank you so much for taking this opportunity to share about the campaign and all the things that we need to know to make a informed decision when it's time for us to go to the polls. I know we're going to be faced with some challenges, with the voting rights and all the crap that goes on with that. But, we want to make sure that we bring candidates here on this platform so they can say, this is why you need to do everything in your power to get to the polls. And so insurance is a big thing. We didn't get a chance to even talk about premiums. And please, I can't even imagine what a premium looks like for someone who has no insurance. My husband works for pharmaceutical. He works, and our premiums are still ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so I can't even imagine what those premiums look like when you don't have insurance through your job. So we probably gonna have to bring you back about that, because I know that's a big thing that's important to a lot of people, and we need them to understand that you need to understand what he's fighting for so you can help him win that seat to get what you need. So I want to thank you for taking the time to even spend some time here talking about the things that you have, but I want you to come back and I want to talk about premiums because we didn't get a chance to.
I'd love to. Yeah, we can talk. We can talk about. We can talk about a lot of stuff. We got to talk about auto insurance. We got to talk about health insurance. We got to talk about telemedicine. But there's a lot of stuff we still got to talk about.
So when you come back in March,
we definitely need to schedule a part 2, because outside of those what you named, we didn't talk about the as people call them food deserts. Well, there is medical deserts throughout rural Georgia. Right before the pandemic, these hospitals was getting closed down. The pandemic basically pulled the rug back and showed that what was going on. And unfortunately, majority of the uninsured medically in the state are minority and low income individuals. And so I would love to get you back on there so we can discuss that, because once you start, campaigning down in rural South Georgia, there's gonna be a lot of questions about that. They want to know what your campaign or what are you proposing to help those down there. Albany, who was
that's my home.
Yeah, the Mecca.
My sister is an ASU Ram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Albany State. Yes.
They were hit hard at the beginning of this pandemic, and then, if I'm not mistaken, Audrey, you can help me because you say you're from there. One of their major hospitals was shut down, and then so now they only have one hospital in the whole area.
One hospital in the entire and Albany has a population of between, I think, 30,000 and 60,000 residents, and it is one of the poorest places in Georgia to live, and it has an airport. So I can't even that's a whole nother show by itself. I'm constantly baffled by that whole process, but they have one hospital in that town. And it has been the one hospital. Now they call itself expanded a little bit. They had two at one point. Now it's one. And my uncle who passed away from COVID, he couldn't even stay at the one hospital they had. They had to fly him to Macon. I mean, they had to bring him to Macon where he passed away. So, that was a mess in itself. And I know that they need a lot of help down there. So, being able to help them figure out what it is they need to be doing in places like that is going to be helpful.
I'd love to come back on and talk more. Let's try to do something maybe towards the end of February or into March as we get towards the end of session, because then we can talk more about also what's happening in the session.
All right.
Okay. So it'll probably March because we're already booked for February completely.
It's a popular show.
Thank you.
Everybody loves popcorn. and most people like some politics.
And we haven't eaten popcorn yet on the show, which is crazy, but that's another story too.
Well, I was gonna pop some popcorn. We bought some popcorn, but I was like, I didn't want to. I don't believe in free advertisement, so I was gonna be sitting here in a clear bag or something, so I didn't want to give out who the popcorn was. We got to speak with our attorney first. See how we can make this work without giving free advertising.
That's right.
Be like how on TV, instead of saying the brand, you just say cola.
Right.
Don't give me a bag to just say popcorn.
Right. So thanks again, Matthew. We will get you back on the schedule for March because we really want to talk about those topics, discuss those topics as well, because they're very important. So just look out for an email from either Derek or myself to get you back on our calendar to come back on and discuss those areas that are so important to all of us.
Yes,
absolutely.
Like you stated, this is the most important job in the state. Like, people don't realize that, and it's it's going to take multiple shows just to talk about how far-reaching this office is. It affects people's daily lives, and they don't understand it.
Well, y'all are doing such important work, so I appreciate both of you, and look forward to being with y'all again very soon.
All right, thanks again. All right, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed this interview, but stay tuned. There's going to be a part 2 coming in March, so just be sure to look out for that, and we will let you know. It's important. If you got insurance questions, you can always go to our Facebook page, LinkedIn page, YouTube page, Twitter page, and drop your questions there. And remember, this show is broadcasted live on American One Radio, as well as in LinkedIn, Facebook, Roku, YouTube, and all of those places right there. So make sure to tune in. Next week, we've got another great guest coming up, but make sure to come back and follow us. And go to Matthew's page. If you like what he said, if you feel like he's a candidate for you, go to his website. It's right here in the comments. Go to that site and make sure to support him because we need that help. We need somebody that's going to get in there and can't let temptation be kryptonite. We need that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Matthew. Thanks, Derek, for being my co-host. We'll be back again next Sunday, same time, same bat place. Until next time, my good friends. Until next time, make it a great day. Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Popcorn in Politics. What's the Real Deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your family and friends. To support the show, visit us on the web at www.popcorninpolitics.com. Connect with us on Facebook at Progressive Popcorn and on Instagram at Popcorn Politics Podcast.